Hey everyone, Therese here. Welcome back to my 52-week art journal challenge, where each week I dive into a new prompt and transform it into a unique visual story. I am so excited to share this creative journey with you, and today I'm sharing week 20th of the challenge, and I will be showing you my paintings and story in these new pages. If you love receiving little bursts of creativity in your mailbox, you're going to love my mail club on Patreon. Each month, I send out a beautifully curated envelope filled with exclusive pieces from my art journal. These are things I don't make available anywhere else. You will get early glimpses of my newest paintings and stories, a unique sticker sheet, a postcard, plus weekly art journal prompts to spark your own creativity, and I also include a printed excerpt from my art journal entries. Think of it as a tiny piece of happy mail made with love, tucked into custom envelopes and sent straight to your door. If that sounds like you're kind of whimsy, you can join my mail club on Patreon, and I'd absolutely love to send a little inspiration your way every month. I will be showing this month's physical rewards in this video, so keep watching. I'm working in a blank notebook with 160 GSM paper, which holds up really nicely with paint. For brushes, I mostly switch between round, detail, and filbert shapes in a few sizes. Using these helps me create a nice variety of marks. For paint, I'm using gouache from Holbein. I mix my colors on an acrylic palette, and whenever I want clean, crisp edges, I reach for a bit of washi tape. For writing, I use Sakura Pigma pens in sepia color. And that's pretty much the supplies I'm using. If anything catches your eye, you can find the links in the video description. For this week's art journal prompt, I titled it The Unplanned Journey, and we are jumping right into the first piece I'm painting for it. I wanted a full page painting of a travel themed scene. Let's paint a blue sky with soft wispy clouds. We will need blue and white. I like using a filbert brush for the sky and a smaller one for the clouds. Start by mixing sky blue until you get a soft, light tone. If it feels too bright, you can slightly mute it by adding a bit more white. While laying down the paint, use horizontal strokes and work fairly quickly so the paint stays smooth and blendable. As you move downward, you can mix in a bit more white to create a subtle gradient. You can also clean your brush, dry it a bit, and gently feather the surface to smooth it out. Next, using a smaller brush and white paint, start painting thin, wispy cloud shapes. Keep your strokes light and vary your pressure so some areas are soft while others are slightly more defined, like clouds that are stretched and drifting across the sky. To add a bit of depth, layer a brighter white in a few areas where the light would hit. You can add a few extra wisps for movement. In this part of the painting, we're going to focus on doing the top portion of a cottage with a chimney peeking out from behind the trees. I won't go into the trees just yet. By the way, you can always start by lightly sketching the basic shape of the cottage roof beforehand, just to map out the angle of the roof and where the chimney will sit. Since the cottage is partially hidden, only draw the visible top section. Mix your base color for the roof. I'm doing a warm gray using black and smoked bamboo color. You can actually use any color close to these, as many gouache brands would name them differently. With gouache, it's best to start with a mid-tone. Using a detail brush, I'm filling in the roof shape following its direction to help give it structure. After that first layer, we will introduce subtle variations in color. We can add a slightly darker tone along one side of the roof to create shadows and a lighter tone where the light might hit. There will be a dormer roof here using the same shades that we used, but we will just need to outline and create more shadows around the shape by adding a hint of black. For the chimney, mix Tasha brown and smoked bamboo or any similar color like burnt sienna or burnt umber to paint a small rectangular shape rising from the roof. Then we will just paint the other side of the cottage using the same technique to our chimney. When deciding which part of the composition to paint first, I always look for what is likely to be on the background. So before we move on to the greenery, the layer that comes before it will be the pathway, and I'm painting that using white, smoked bamboo, and raw umber, I believe, but I wasn't able to show it on my palette. But now that the cottage is in place, let's start building the bushy trees that sit around it and partially frame it. Since they surround and overlap parts of the roof, they are gonna be rounded, clustered shapes that tuck in from the sides and slightly behind. We'll start with a darker leaf color. Mix vermilion with permanent green to create a deep, rich tone. It might sound like an unusual combination, but the warmth of the vermilion neutralizes the green just enough, giving you a more natural, earthy shade. Using a small filbert brush, I'm blocking the main masses of the trees, and instead of painting individual leaves, I'm doing cloud-like clusters. Use a dabbing or stippling motion with the brush to create organic, uneven edges. Once the darker layer is done, we will move on to the lighter tones. Mix elm green with permanent yellow deep to create a warmer, lighter green. This color will act as your highlights and bring life into the trees. With the same brush, begin adding this lighter color on top of the darker base and focus on areas where light would normally hit, which are the outer edges of the trees, the tops of clusters, and any areas facing your imagined light source. Use the same dabbing motion, but be a bit more selective this time. You want the darker layer to still show through the gaps. As you build up these layers, we are creating depth. Some areas can stay darker, while others come forward with brighter, warmer tones. This contrast is what gives the trees that full, bushy appearance. If the transition between dark and light feels too harsh, you can mix a mid-tone between your two colors and gently blend a few areas. But try not to overwork it. You can also add a few final touches of even lighter highlights by increasing the amount of permanent yellow deep and a bit of white in your mix. Now let's paint a little focal point to add some personality to the scene. A yellow Volkswagen Beetle with 3 suitcases stacked on top. I don't actually own this kind of car, but I chose to paint it because it instantly brings in that vintage, nostalgic feeling. It has such a charming, timeless shape that really complements the cozy mood of the cottage. We combine permanent yellow with a tiny touch of a warm color like vermilion to soften it slightly. We want that rich, warm yellow, and using a detail brush, start filling in the main body of the car. Then we use white to create highlights and dimension before moving on to the other details like the seat and stacked suitcases. At this point, we are refining the car by adding a few more details like outlining different areas such as the windshield, tire, bumper, and plate number with black and brown. Now we are ready to paint the final elements that brings the whole composition together, which are the lavender fields stretching on both sides of the Beetle. This part is really what ties the scene into that dreamy, nostalgic atmosphere. I was especially inspired by the landscapes of Provence in France, where you see these beautiful rows of lavender extending into the distance while still being able to incorporate this into the story. The lavender will sit on both sides, framing the Beetle. And using the same green shades from the trees, we are painting the stems like grass on the base. Then mix our lavender color, combining violet or magenta with a touch of white to soften it. Using a detail brush, we're doing little vertical strokes at the rows further back into the distance and become longer towards us. Mix a darker shade of your purple by adding a bit of Prussian blue or even a touch of a deeper color, and use this to add shadows within the rows, especially toward the base and in between the clusters. And that finishes this painting. Once the paint has dried, we can gently remove the washi tapes. And now let's move on to the next page to paint more individual illustrations. Here we have a girl standing with her back facing us, holding a suitcase with both hands. Above her is the sky and an airplane flying through the distance. Start with the sky since it sets the mood. Mix a soft gradient, blending a light blue closer to the horizon. Use a small filbert brush. We apply and even out the paint by going back with a damp brush and working gently so the colors transition without harsh lines. We can paint the ground. You can keep it minimal and use earthy green tones and little grass brush strokes. Back to the sky, I am painting a little Philippine Airlines plane because why not? Moving on to the figure, start by blocking in her silhouette. Choose a color that contrasts clearly with the background so she stands out. And since we see her from behind, focus on the overall shape and gesture rather than small details. For the hair, follow the direction it would naturally fall as she looks upward. Add highlights just a little behind her head and paint the clothing and suitcase with a solid shape. Use a color that separates it from her clothing. And since this painting is really small, we don't need to make it super detailed. Just basic shapes with some highlights and shadows are enough. On to the next painting, we're painting a shirt on a bag, but I started with the shirt, so just imagine the bag it sits on for the meantime. I'm painting the shirt using a mid-tone blue, painting it as a single shape first, focusing on its placement inside the bag. Let parts of it overlap the rim slightly to show it is loosely placed. Build the folds of the shirt by layering darker and lighter blues, and define the collar by sharpening its edges and adding contrast. Next is the brown bag. Start with a mid-tone Taisha brown and block in the main shape. We'll just keep the edges slightly irregular to show the natural folds of the material. Define the opening of the bag with a darker tone, painting inside the rim to create depth. The stool is next. Using gray, paint the backrest that is slightly visible behind the bag, then the seat and the legs. We're creating the shadows beneath the bag on the stool and add a darker tone along one side of each leg to create dimension. Then I'm also painting a journal with a little envelope beside it. I hope you can follow the steps for this one as I paint it, because right now I want to share with you the story I wrote for this prompt. It all happened too quickly. Ilara hadn't even finished unpacking from the first trip when the message came. Another invitation, another place, another set of dates that overlapped too closely with everything she had just returned from. For a moment, she simply stared at her phone, the words blurring slightly as her mind tried to catch up. It didn't make sense. She had barely rested. Her bag still sat open on the chair, clothes half folded, small souvenirs tucked between pages of her journal. The rhythm of home had not yet returned, and already something new was asking her to leave again. Her first instinct was to say, "Wait." Practical thoughts about time, energy, money, and responsibilities filled the space quickly. The careful structure she had been rebuilding in her life didn't seem to allow this kind of sudden movement. But beneath all that, there was a still small voice she had come to recognize. The same one that had nudged her to take unfamiliar paths. The same one that had whispered, "Try," when she wasn't sure she could. She sat down slowly, letting the noise of her thoughts settle. What if she didn't need to have everything figured out first? What if not knowing was part of the invitation? The question lingered longer than her doubts. Days passed in a blur, one trip folded into the next. Different places, different rhythms of living. There were moments when she felt adjusting to unfamiliar surroundings and navigating new routines without the comfort of predictability. And yet, something unexpected began to happen. Things worked out. It may not be perfect nor smooth, but in ways she hadn't planned. A delayed ride turned into a purposeful conversation with a stranger whom she shared a story with she didn't know they needed to hear. A last-minute change in plans led her to a place more peaceful than the one she had intended to visit. When concerns about timing came up, something shifted just enough to make space. It wasn't control. It was something else. Provision. Ilara began to notice it more clearly as the days unfolded. The way small needs were met just when they arose, the way help appeared in simple forms such as a kind gesture, an open seat, a rewarding moment to share a testimony of faith. She realized how used she had been to preparing for everything, to making sure every step was secure before moving forward, which are good things. But here, in the middle of movement, she was learning a different kind of trust and flexibility. Adventure wasn't about seeking something familiar. Sometimes it was about saying yes when life moved faster than expected and trusting that what you need will meet you along the way. Not everything has to be planned to be meaningful or certain to be safe. May you reflect that kind of adventure too, where paths overlap, moments unfold unexpectedly, and a divine grace provides as you move forward. This prompt is a recent real-life story for me because I just returned from a trip, and before, when there's a short notice of invitation, I would feel hesitations thinking about responsibilities or work, but something about it felt different. With only a few days of doing everything I needed to do for work, I packed my luggages and we're on my way again. I noticed how quickly my attention shifted from worrying about details to noticing what was happening in the present moment. The small decisions that usually feel heavy, like where to go next or what time to leave, became lighter because there was no pressure to get everything right. Instead, I found myself observing more: the sound of the road, the changing scenery, and even small interactions with strangers. Life has a way of filling in the gaps when you allow it, and flexibility creates space for unexpected moments, and those moments often become the most memorable. I understood that unplanned journeys are not just about travel, they reflect a way of living. They remind you to stay open, to notice more, and to accept that not everything needs to be figured out in advance. There is value in direction, but there is also value in discovery. When I think back on that experience, it does not feel chaotic, but it feels honest. It showed me that stepping away from planning or comfort, even briefly, can lead to a deeper appreciation of both the world around me and my ability to move through it. There's also a quiet kind of confidence that grows from this experience each time you move through something unplanned and realize you're okay. So if you're standing at the edge of an unplanned journey, whether it is literal travel or a change in your life, allow yourself to take that step. You do not need every answer before you begin. You only need a willingness to try, to observe, and to adapt along the way. Before I read to you the story, I painted a few more elements like a potted lavender, a girl sitting in deep thought, though I don't think I captured the emotion well. And to be honest, I felt rushed painting it. Then I also painted a scene on a train window with hills and trees outside. On the final page of this prompt story, I am painting a couple more illustrations. Here there are 3 flower pots hanging on a branch of tree. I mixed browns such as burnt umber, Tasha brown, raw sienna, white, and a touch of black to create a natural wood tone. You can do the base color in long strokes following the direction of the branch. But for me, I just made my sketch as a guide of which parts are of the branch since there will be ropes hanging on it. I also painted several leaves around using the same green mixture I used from the previous paintings. Move on to the hanging ropes that connect the pots to the branch. Use a small detail brush to paint dark brown and keep the lines slightly uneven to create natural movement. For the flower pots, begin with their base shapes using flat warm gray tones. Add highlights on the side facing the light using a lighter mix of the base color in white. For the flowers, simplify the shapes rather than detailing every petal and apply them in clusters. One last painting begins with a distant landscape. I mixed white and a touch of gray to paint the cloudy sky and far background. For distant hills or trees, use yellows and greens, keeping the edges soft so they appear far away. Then I moved to the midground where the landscape transitions into more defined forms such as balustrades and stairs. Add shadows beneath the balustrades and along the sides of the stairs and paint some more greenery and little flowers. In the beginning, I mentioned my mail club on Patreon, and if you missed it and would like to join, it is where I share my paintings and art journal entries in a more personal way. I also turned selected pieces into stickers and postcards so you can actually receive them in the mail. Patreon is the membership platform where you get access to exclusive content. This includes early previews of my newest paintings, art journal pages, and extra weekly prompts that do not always make it into my YouTube videos. As a paid member, you also receive monthly physical rewards such as postcard prints, sticker sheets, art journal prompts, and other items that are only available through the club. There are different membership tiers you can choose from depending on what you want to receive. The Treasured Royals Mail Club tier includes everything I offer, plus occasional small bonus items as a thank you. All of these are packed in a custom envelope and shipping is already included in the membership price. The Mail Club is open internationally. This is already the 5th month of running the Mail Club and I continue to send everything through registered mail. I use this option because it is the most affordable way to keep the membership accessible. It does not mean the delivery is instant, just like how other clubs call it snail mail, since it still follows normal postal timelines and sometimes it changes depending on a country's import regulation and processes. However, registered mail is traceable, so you can send me a direct message anytime in Patreon if your package has not arrived within the expected time frame, and I can help check its status. I really appreciate your patience with delivery times. Postal systems can change and sometimes unexpected global events, including situations in different regions, can affect how quickly mail moves between countries. Even so, I thank you for supporting creative endeavors like this, and I always hope your package arrives safely. If anything goes missing, I am always willing to send replacements. With that said, I hope this week's prompt brings you a sense of ease, peace, joy, and love in your creative practice. This marks the 20th week of my Art Journal Challenge series, and if you enjoy art journaling with prompts like this, there are more coming in this series, so you might enjoy staying tuned. We are near the end of the video now, and I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, feel free to give it a like. You can also subscribe to stay connected for more art and journaling content from me. Thank you for spending your time here. Take care, and I hope the rest of your day or night is a good one. I love you all. Bye!